Tonga, officially the Kingdom of Tonga, is a Polynesian sovereign state and archipelago comprising 177 islands with a total surface area of about 750 square kilometers scattered over 700,000 square kilometers of the southern Pacific Ocean, of which 52 islands are inhabited by its 103,000 people. 70% of Tongans reside on the main island of Tongatapu. Tonga stretches over about 800 kilometers in a north-south line, about a third of the distance from New Zealand to Hawaii. It is surrounded by Fiji and Wallis and Futuna to the northwest, Samoa to the northeast, Niue to the east, Kermadec to the southwest, and New Caledonia and Vanuatu to the farther west. Tonga became known as the Friendly Islands because of the congenial reception accorded to Captain James Cook on his first visit in 1773. He arrived at the time of the Inasi Festival, the yearly donation of the first fruits to the Tauʻolunga Tonga, and so received an invitation to the festivities. According to the writer William Mariner, the chiefs wanted to kill Cook during the gathering but could not agree on a plan. Tonga has never lost its sovereignty to a foreign power. In 2010, Tonga took a decisive step towards becoming a fully functioning constitutional monarchy, after legislative reforms paved the way for its first partial representative elections. Etymology. In many Polynesian languages, Tongan included, the word Tonga means south. As the archipelago is the southernmost group of islands of central Polynesia, in Tongan, the name is pronounced Tono, and it is commonly pronounced as Tini or Tieni in English. The name of Tonga is cognate to the Hawaiian region of Kona. History. An Austronesian-speaking group linked to the archaeological construct known as the Lapita Cultural Complex reached and colonized Tonga around 1500 to 1000 BCE. Scholars have much debated the exact dates of the initial settlement of Tonga, but recently it has been thought that the first settlers came to the oldest town, Nuku'alofa, about 826 BCE, plus or minus 8 years. Not much is known before European contact because of the lack of a writing system, but oral history has survived and been recorded after the arrival of the Europeans. The Tongan people first encountered Europeans in 1616 when the Dutch vessel Eendracht made a short visit to trade. By the 12th century, Tongans and the Tongan paramount chief, the Tauʻolunga Tonga, had a reputation across the central Pacific, from Niue, Samoa, Rotuma, Wallis and Futuna, New Caledonia to Tikopia, leading some historians to speak of a Tauʻolunga Tonga empire. In the 15th century and again in the 17th, civil war erupted. Into this situation the first European explorers arrived, beginning in 1616 with the Dutch explorers Willem Schouten and Jacob Lemaire, and in 1643 with Abel Tasman. Later noteworthy European visitors included James Cook in 1773, 1774, and 1777, Alessandro Malaspina in 1793, the first London missionaries in 1797, and the Wesleyan Methodist Rev. Walter Lawrie in 1822. In 1845, the ambitious young warrior, strategist, and orator Tauʻoraha united Tonga into a kingdom. He held the chiefly title of Tuaikano-Kupolu, but had been baptized with the name Shao-Si in 1831. In 1875, with the help of missionary Shirley Baker, he declared Tonga a constitutional monarchy, formally adopted the Western royal style, emancipated the serfs, enshrined a code of law, land tenure, and freedom of the press, and limited the power of the chiefs. Tonga became a protected state under a treaty of friendship with Britain on 18 May 1900. When European settlers and rival Tongan chiefs tried to oust the second king, the treaty posted no higher permanent representative on Tonga than a British consul. Although under the protection of Britain, Tonga maintained its sovereignty, and remained the only Pacific nation never to have given up its monarchical government. The Tongan monarchy follows an uninterrupted succession of hereditary rulers from one family. The 1918 flu pandemic killed 1,800 Tongans, around 8% of the residents. The Treaty of Friendship and Tonga's protection status ended in 1970 under arrangements established by Queen Tauʻolunga III prior to her death in 1965. Tonga joined the Commonwealth of Nations in 1970, and became a member of the United Nations in September 1999. While exposed to colonial pressures, Tonga has never lost indigenous governance, which makes it unique in the Pacific and gives Tongans confidence in their monarchical system and much pride. As part of cost-cutting measures across the British Foreign Service, the British government closed the British High Commission in Nuku'alofa in March 2006, transferring representation of British interests to the High Commissioner in Fiji. The last resident British High Commissioner was Paul Nestling. Geography. Located in Oceania, Tonga is an archipelago in the South Pacific Ocean, directly south of Samoa and about two-thirds of the way from Hawaii to New Zealand. Its 177 islands, 36 of them inhabited, are divided into three main groups, Vava'iu, Ha'apai, and Tongatapu, and cover an 800-kilometer-long north-south line. The largest island, Tongatapu, on which the capital city of Nuku'alofa is located, covers 257 square kilometers. Geologically, the Tongan Islands are of two types. Most have a limestone base formed from uplifted coral formations, others consist of limestone overlaying a volcanic base. Climate. The climate is tropical with a distinct warm period, during which the temperatures rise above 32 degrees Celsius, and a cooler period, with temperatures rarely rising above 27 degrees Celsius. The temperature increases from 23 to 27 degrees Celsius, and the annual rainfall is from 1,700 to 2,970 mm as one moves from Tongatapu in the south to the more northerly islands closer to the equator. The average wettest period is around March with on average 263 mm. The average daily humidity is 80%. The tropical cyclone season currently runs from the 1st of November to the 30th of April, though tropical cyclones can form and affect Tonga outside of the season. Politics. Tonga is a constitutional monarchy. Reverence for the monarch replaces that held in earlier centuries for the sacred paramount chief, the Tuai Tonga. Criticism of the monarch is held to be contrary to Tongan culture and etiquette. King Tauʻolunga VI, his family, powerful nobles and a growing non-royal elite caste live in much wealth, with the rest of the country living in relative poverty. The effects of this disparity are mitigated by education, medicine, and land tenure. Tonga provides for its citizens free and mandatory education for all, secondary education with only nominal fees, and foreign-funded scholarships for post-secondary education. The pro-democracy movement in Tonga promotes reforms, including better representation in the parliament for the majority commoners, and better accountability in matters of state. An overthrow of the monarchy is not part of the movement, and the institution of monarchy continues to hold popular support, even while reforms are advocated. Until recently, the governance issue was generally ignored by the leaders of other countries. But major aid donors and neighbours, New Zealand and Australia, are now expressing concerns about some Tongan government actions. Following the precedents of Queen Tauʻolunga and the counsel of numerous international advisors, the government of Tonga under King Tauʻolunga IV monetized the economy, internationalized the medical and education system, and enabled access by commoners to increasing forms of material wealth, education, and overseas travel. Tongans have universal access to a national healthcare system. The Tongan constitution protects land ownership. Land cannot be sold to foreigners. While there is a land shortage on the urbanized main island of Tongatapu, there is farmland available in the outlying islands. The majority of the population engages in some form of subsistence production of food, with approximately half producing almost all of their basic food needs through farming, see harvesting, and animal husbandry. Women and men have equal access to education and health care and are fairly equal in employment, but women are discriminated against in land holding, electoral politics, and government ministries. Political culture. The previous king, Tauʻolunga IV, and his government made some problematic economic decisions and were accused of wasting millions of dollars in poor investments. The problems have mostly been driven by attempts to increase national revenue through a variety of schemes, considering making Tonga a nuclear waste disposal site, and selling Tongan protected persons passports. Schemes also included the registering foreign ships, claiming geo-orbital satellite slots, holding a long-term charter on an unusable Boeing 757 that was sidelined in Auckland Airport, leading to the collapse of Royal Tongan Airlines, and approving a factory for exporting cigarettes to China. The king proved vulnerable to speculators with big promises and lost reportedly $26 million to Jesse Bogdanoff, a financial advisor who called himself the king's court jester. The police imprisoned pro-democracy leaders, and the government repeatedly confiscated the newspaper The Tongan Times because the editor had been vocally critical of the king's mistakes. Notably, the Kiele, produced specifically to critique the government and printed in Tonga by pro-democracy leader Akilisi Poiva, was not banned during that time. Poiva, however, had been subjected to harassment in the form of barratry. In mid-2003 the government passed a radical constitutional amendment to Tonganize the press, by licensing and limiting freedom of the press, so as to protect the image of the monarchy. The amendment was defended by the government and by royalists on the basis of traditional cultural values. Licensure criteria include 80% ownership by Tongans living in the country. As of February 2004, those papers denied licenses under the new act included the Taimeo Tonga, the Kiele, and the Matangi Tonga, while those permitted licenses were uniformly church-based or pro-government. The bill was opposed in the form of a several thousand-strong protest march in the capital, a call by the Tauʻolunga for Australia and other nations to pressure the Tongan government to democratise the electoral system, and a legal writ calling for a judicial investigation of the bill. The latter was supported by some 160 signatures, including 7 of the 9 elected people's representatives. The then Crown Prince Tupou Utoa and Pilalevu, the Princess Royal, remained generally silent on the issue. In total, the changes threatened to destabilize the polity, fragment support for the status quo, and place further pressure on the monarchy. In 2005, the government spent several weeks negotiating with striking civil service workers before reaching a settlement. The civil unrest that ensued was not limited to Tonga. Protests outside the King's New Zealand residence made headlines, too. A constitutional commission is currently studying proposals to update the constitution. Prime Minister Prince Ahoʻitu Anuaki Tonga Takuaho resigned suddenly on the 11th of February 2006, and also gave up his other cabinet portfolios. The elected Minister of Labour, Dr. Feleta Seville, replaced him in the interim. On 5 July 2006, a driver in Menlo Park, California caused the deaths of Prince Tuipolehaki Oluvalu, his wife, and the driver. Tuipolehaki, 55, was the co-chairman of the Constitutional Reform Commission, and a nephew of the king. The public expected some changes when George Tupou V succeeded his father in September 2006. On 16 November 2006, rioting broke out in the capital city of Nuku'alofa when it seemed that the parliament would adjourn for the year without having made any advances in increasing democracy in government. pro-democracy activists burned and looted shops, offices, and government buildings. As a result, more than 60% of the downtown area was destroyed, and as many as 6 people died. On the 29th of July 2008, the palace announced that King George Tauʻo V would relinquish much of his power and would surrender his role in day-to-day governmental affairs to the Prime Minister. The royal chamberlain said that this was being done to prepare the monarchy for 2010, when most of the first parliament will be elected, and added, "The sovereign of the only Polynesian kingdom is voluntarily surrendering his powers to meet the democratic aspirations of many of his people." The previous week, the government said the king had sold state assets that had contributed to much of the royal family's wealth. On the 15th of March 2012, King George Tauʻo V contracted pneumonia and was hospitalized at Queen Mary Hospital in Hong Kong. He was later diagnosed with leukemia. His health deteriorated significantly shortly thereafter, and he died at 3:15 p.m. on the 18th of March 2012. He was succeeded by his brother Tauʻo VI. Tauʻo VI was crowned King of Tonga on July 4, 2015. Foreign relations. Tonga's foreign policy as of January 2009 has been described by Matangi Tonga as "look east," namely, as establishing closer diplomatic and economic relations with Asia. Tonga retains cordial relations with the United States. Although it remains on good terms with the United Kingdom, the two countries do not maintain particularly close relations, and the United Kingdom closed its High Commission in Tonga in 2006. Tonga's relations with Oceania's regional powers, Australia and New Zealand, are good. Tonga maintains strong regional ties in the Pacific. It is a full member of the Pacific Islands Forum, the South Pacific Applied Geoscience Commission, the South Pacific Tourism Organization, the Pacific Regional Environment Program and the Secretariat of the Pacific Community. Military. The Tongan government supported the American coalition of the Willing Action in Iraq and deployed 40-plus soldiers in late 2004. The contingent returned home on 17 December 2004. In 2007 a second contingent went to Iraq, and 2 more were sent during 2008 as a part of continued support for the coalition. Tongan involvement concluded at the end of 2008 with no reported loss of life. In 2010, Brigadier General Tauʻounga Irachu, commander of the Tonga Defence Services, signed an agreement in London committing a minimum of 200 troops to cooperate with Britain's International Security Assistance Force in Afghanistan. The task completed in April 2014, and the UK presented Operational Service Medals to each of the soldiers involved during a parade held in Tonga. Tonga has contributed troops and police to the Bougainville conflict in Papua New Guinea and to the Australian-led RAMSI force in the Solomon Islands. Administrative divisions. Tonga is subdivided into 5 divisions: Ua, Harapai, Niue's, Tongatapu, and Vavayu.